So are your fans actually any good, and do they make any impact on the outcome of a match? Let's find out. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. I'm really excited to get into this one today. So what we have is the data for championship clubs and their home records with and without fans, and we're going to be making a bit of a comparison between those numbers today. Basically to find out if your club is performing better with fans in the stadiums at home or without fans in the stadium. So for the data collected in this video, we've gone back to the 15/16 season, taking that up to the first half of the 1920 season when fans were still in stadiums, and then we're going to be comparing those numbers to your club's numbers without fans in the grounds. So basically what we're looking for in today's video is if your team has a higher win percentage at home with fans in the stadiums, then you guys are obviously making quite the difference. But if your club is doing better without fans in the stadiums, then maybe it's the opposite way around. Obviously this video is just for a bit of fun, and there's loads of other factors to take into consideration that we're just going to discard. You know, teams playing in different leagues, transfers, you know, it's a different squad from a few years ago compared to now. But for the sake of the video, we're going to be forgetting about that and just focusing on the fans' impact on games. Without any further ado, let's jump into this one. Starting out with Barnsley, who have actually improved with no fans being in the ground. So without fans in stadiums, they have a win percentage of 50% at home, which is considerably quite high actually compared to some of the other numbers that we're going to look into in today's video. With fans in the grounds, they had a win percentage of 38%, so we can see a 12% increase on the amount of wins they get with no fans in the ground. So Barnsley fans, you need to step up your game. At Birmingham, I think it's fair to say that the fans have made a difference over the years, because without them in the grounds, their home form has seriously tailed off, winning just 20% of their matches at St Andrews with no fans in the ground. So Birmingham clearly prefer performing in front of a crowd, and that 20% home win record without fans in the ground is the lowest that we're going to see in today's video. Birmingham have been woeful at home without fans in the ground, so they really need them back. Blackburn follow a similar trend to Birmingham, whereby their home form has taken quite the dive with no fans being in ground, so Blackburn fans will be eager to get back in there to make a difference. Now, I mean, Blackburn's quite the interesting one, because initially at the start of the season especially, Ewood Park was quite the tough place to go to, but as the season's gone on, that home impact has just been lessened and lessened to the point now where the Rovers fans just want to be back in there. Now this next one is an interesting one, because Bournemouth's home record has significantly improved with no fans being in grounds. Now I know that the big overarching factor here is that with fans in the grounds, Bournemouth were obviously playing in the Premier League during that time, and with no fans in the ground, they've been playing in the Championship, so they have had easier opponents. But nevertheless, still makes for quite interesting reading, especially when we do compare it to some of the other clubs who were relegated last season from the Premier League. And Brentford follow along on a similar path to that of Bournemouth as well, with their home record actually improving with no fans in the stadiums. Now, the other thing to take into consideration here is Brentford playing in a completely new stadium, you know, with fans in the grounds. That was all numbers taken from their Griffin Park days. So I'm really interested to see how the atmosphere from Griffin Park is sort of transferred over to their new stadiums when the Brentford fans finally do get in there. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one to look into. Now, Ashton Gate has not been a good place to be with no fans in the stadiums, with Bristol City winning just 32% of their home matches with no crowds there. It's been, I mean, lately especially, we picked up on Bristol City's home form quite a few times on the channel. It's really been quite shoddy actually, and with fans being in the grounds, obviously they were making a difference with that higher win percentage there. So Bristol City fans desperate to get back in and try and give their team any sort of lift at the moment. Cardiff clearly prefer performing in front of a crowd without fans in the grounds. Their home record has taken a dent by 10%, and quite interesting numbers actually, with fans in stadiums, Cardiff winning 50% of their home matches. Really strong number considering they do have, you know, a fair few Premier League games in there as well. So yeah, good numbers from Cardiff there. Coventry's home win percentage has taken a 9% dip with no fans being in stadiums, but that probably would be to be expected, obviously, with the other factors to take into consideration, you know, playing in different leagues and actually playing in different stadiums. I'm really looking forward to Coventry moving back to the Rico next season. I myself have never actually been, so provided they do stay up in the Championship this season, be quite interested to go into that one next year. When it comes to Derby, you guys are making a massive impact, because the drop off in your home form with no fans in stadiums has been absolutely huge. You've gone from winning 52% of your home matches to 29%. It's by far one of the biggest drop offs we'll see in today's video. With Huddersfield, they have improved with no fans being in the stadiums, but ever so slightly. The other thing to take into consideration with Huddersfield is them having a couple of years in the Premier League with fans being in the ground, so obviously that will impact the numbers slightly on this one, but very close on this one. When it comes to Luton, much stronger with fans being in stadiums. Obviously not all the numbers for those fans being in grounds will have been, you know, from when they've been in the Championship, but nevertheless still much stronger with fans in the grounds, and they can get that place really rocking, can't they? Middlesbrough, another club who are typically better with fans being in stadiums, but the numbers here being fairly close. It's another quite tight one with fans in grounds 47%, without fans in grounds 42%, so there is a slight difference there, but still fairly close. They're still quite consistent when it comes to their home record. Now this one was probably to be expected, but Millwall have had a big drop off in their home record with no fans being in grounds. You know, we always sort of associate the Den especially with being this really quite intimidating ground. You know, the fans will really get on your back and stuff like that, and so I mean the numbers here show that Millwall fans are clearly making an impact on their club. You know, since being back up in the Championship, Millwall have always been a club who's had a really quite strong home record. You know, they never really typically seem to lose all too many matches there up until this season, and especially at the start of the year they were, you know, trying to pull a home result from absolutely anywhere. They were really poor. That has slightly picked up lately, but no question Millwall a lot stronger with fans in there. Now Norwich have improved with no fans being in stadiums, but I actually think this is really impressive on Norwich's front, considering, you know, all the times they've been in the Premier League lately. For them to have a home win percentage with fans being in the stadiums of 47%, considering all those Premier League matches which have been added into this number, that's actually really impressive. So they're really close to their numbers on this one. But I mean, yeah, this season especially, and obviously the tail end of last season, which is also taken into consideration, really strong stuff from Norwich lately. But this is another one where, you know, when they are back in the Premier League, I'm sure the fans will be buzzing to get back in. Nottingham Forest at the City Ground, another club who is making an impact with their fans being in there. Their home form has tailed off pretty significantly with no fans being in grounds, with a win percentage of just 32%. Now, I mean, the City Ground's always a really good away day. You know, I've praised it many times on the channel throughout the years and stuff like that. It's one that I quite enjoy going to. Decent away ending there as well, and Forest fans clearly making the difference. And then next up we get to my club Preston, where, I mean, if these numbers prove absolutely anything, it's that Preston have absolutely unbelievable home fans, because our record with no fans being inside Deepdale has been absolutely tragic. We've won just 25% of our home matches with no fans being in grounds, which is an absolutely woeful number. With fans being in grounds, we had a win percentage of 41%, and with such a sharp drop off to such a tragic number, I mean, it proves that Preston fans are great at home, right? On a real note though, watching Preston, you know, on iFollow lately without being able to be in grounds has been absolutely excruciating at times. We've been so bad, and since we've been back up in the Championship, you know, Deepdale and playing our matches at home has always typically been our sort of strong suit. But yeah, without fans there, we've been absolutely tragic. It just all feels a bit soulless in there and just empty, doesn't it? QPR actually have the closest number of any teams that we've got on today's video. There's just 1% difference with no fans being in grounds, but QPR slightly being better with fans being in there with a win percentage of 43%, but that one is ridiculously close. Reading are one of the few Championship clubs who have actually improved with no fans being in stadiums, with a win percentage of 48%, 8% more than previously, being 40 playing in front of crowds. Obviously this season in general has been quite the step up from Reading compared to previous years. You know, this season they've been battling it around in and around the top 6, whereas previously they were more geared towards the bottom of the Championship. Next up then to Rotherham. Rotherham did actually pick up a huge win at home the other night, which, you know, really sees them back in contention for survival this season. Their next game up against Coventry could be really telling. But the other thing to take into consideration with Rotherham is that we're working with a much smaller sample size. Obviously so far this season they played fewer games than everyone else, and last season they didn't play any games in the second half of the season because League One was ultimately decided on points per game. But even so, that home win record really is quite poor. They'll be hoping to bump that up come the end of the season with their final few matches, but with fans being in grounds, decent record there with 39%. Next up then to Sheffield Wednesday, who have taken an almighty fall off in their home record with no fans being in stadiums. Previously having a win percentage of 48% at Hillsborough, that's dropped to as low as 29% this season. Now obviously Sheffield Wednesday in years gone by had been a club who had been competing in and around the top of the Championship. You know, had a couple times where they really went close to Premier League football, but it never quite happened for them. Recently we've seen quite a drastic fall off from them up until the point now where obviously they had that point deduction and have been pretty lacklustre this season to say the least, and their home record is also factored into that, which has been really poor. So it's looking like it will be League One next season for Wednesday unless there is some sort of miracle. Wednesday fans getting back in there are going to look to make all the difference as they're going to look to bounce back. This next one surprised me quite a bit, to be honest with you, but Stoke's home record has significantly improved with no fans being in stadiums, with them having a win percentage of 50% in front of an empty ground, which is quite impressive compared to some of the other clubs that we've compared them to so far. But the other thing to take into consideration here is obviously the years that Stoke had in the Premier League, which is factored into that number with fans being in the ground. Swansea, another club who have improved this season with no fans being in grounds, with a win percentage of 54%. Once again, we have to take into consideration some of the Premier League years which are factored into this number with fans being in grounds. But another thing I wanted to ask you guys is, do you think there is more significance to different teams playing in front of fans? Because I think what we've sort of seen on the video so far is some of the more like technical teams have actually gotten a little bit better with no fans in grounds, but some of those teams who play with a bit more like aggression and they sort of play on the emotions of the crowd, like let's say like the Millwalls, you know, maybe the Prestons, the Cardiffs, who maybe aren't as technically gifted as some of the sides, but play with that sort of feeling about them. Do you think they rely on their home crowds a little bit more than some of these other technical ones? I don't know, it's an interesting debate, isn't it? And then next up we get to an absolutely ridiculous number. Watford, with fans in the stadiums, have a win percentage of 37%. Okay, it's not the best, not the worst. Obviously, we do have Premier League years to take into consideration when that number was accumulated. Without Watford fans being in the stadiums, they have a win percentage of 72%. What? Absolutely crazy numbers from Watford here. Obviously, taking into consideration is some of their matches towards the end of last season with no fans, and this season as well, where they have been just absolutely ruthless. This season in the Championship, they've lost 2 matches at home all season. They have been an absolute machine, winning 17 home matches. I mean, if this goes on to tell us anything, Watford fans, you need to stay away, because your team clearly thrives with playing in front of an empty stadium. All things considered though, Watford have been fantastic at home, and really no one has got close to them in that regard. And then to finish off today's video with Wickham, who actually have an identical home record without fans to Preston actually. So Wickham fans, I know what it feels like. Not the best home record this season, with just a win percentage of 25%, but with fans in the grounds, actually really strong stuff here. Obviously, all that is taken into consideration, you know, playing in leagues below the Championship, but nevertheless, a home win percentage of 50%, really strong. But I think for Wickham especially, this season has been quite cruel, whereby their fans haven't been able to experience, you know, this season in the Championship. So for that reason especially, I do hope they get back there. But guys, there we have it. There were all the Championship clubs and what their home form was looking like with fans in the stadiums compared to without fans in the stadiums. As always, if you did go on to enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like. Do check out the Patreon as well, link to that is down below, and do share all your thoughts on this video down below. I had quite a bit of fun making this one here. But that'll wrap it up for today, guys, like I say, so make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for some more regular Championship content. But apart from that, I'll see you all in the next one.